But it used to be we would deploy security systems and people had to figure it out. And if they didn't figure it out, it was their fault. Really bad way to do security. The security advice we used to give, don't plug USB sticks into your computer. Like, they're a USB stick. What are you supposed to do with them? And now with just large language models, computers could understand human input, where we can talk to a computer in human language. Security is going to become really different because we're not going to be able to handle the level of rule breakers that we're used to.
Welcome to our podcast. Today, we're thrilled to have with us one of the most prominent figures in the world of security, Mr. Bruce Schneier. Bruce is a public interest technologist, renowned security technologist, author, and lecturer. He has also written several influential books on the topics of security and privacy, including Data and Goliath, The Hacker's Mind, his new book, and Click Here to Kill Everybody. His blog, Schneier on Security, is a go-to resource for many, and his newsletter, Cryptogram, is widely read by those who are interested in security issues. Bruce is also known for his development of blowfish and two-fish encryption algorithms, as I'm sure most of you know who are listening to this podcast. His wisdom and insights have made him a trusted voice in understanding the complex issues and challenges of security in our digital age. Welcome, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Nice intro.
Can you share a little bit, start off by just sharing a little bit about your journey into the world of security? What motivated you to join in this field?
I'm actually terrible at this question. I don't have a good origin story. A decade ago, I decided I should have made one up. So I answered this question, but I never did. So I just did it. I was always interested in cryptography. I wrote Applied Cryptography in 1993, and I guess the rest is in my Wikipedia entry. There's not a lot.
Let's go look it up.
It's been a lot of generalizations. If there's anything I want to say, it's that my career has been an endless series of generalizations from the core of mathematical cryptography out to computer networks, economics, psychology. Now I really write about the public policy of security, and my latest book isn't even about tech. So that's where I head.
Well, speaking of your new book, can you share a little bit about The Hacker's Mind?
So this is my pandemic book. A Hacker's Mind takes the way of thinking of hacks and hacking defense from the world of computers and tries to move them to the world of other things. The central conceit is that a set of rules is a set of rules, and any set of rules could be hacked. It could be rules of computer code, but could also be the tax code. It could be financial regulations. It could be religious rules. It could be anything. And we in computer security have this way of thinking about systems, about vulnerabilities, about hacks, patches, red teaming, defenses, that is valuable in the rest of the world. And that's what the book's about. It was a lot of fun to write, and it can be entertained during a pandemic.
Yeah, everybody listening should check it out. It's an amazing book. You've often emphasized the importance of the human factor in security. Could you explain a little bit why you believe this is so critical in developing more secure, usable systems?
So I don't think anyone listening would not be able to answer that, right? In our field, the person is an integral part of the system. You can't build security without having people involved. It's people who are the users of security. We all know about security that's unusable and doesn't get used. And it's also the breakers of security. That unlike italics in a word processor, security is fundamentally human. And anyone who builds security systems that, stop at the keyboard and screen isn't doing it right. Yeah. And we all know that. But it is interesting because it's kind of unique. I mean, yes, usability and people are important in all of computing, but in security, they are especially integral because security doesn't even make sense without people.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. You emphasize a lot in your books and your blogs that it's a process, not a product. Can you elaborate more on maybe some examples or some good way of thinking maybe for articulating that?
So I first articulated that in the late 90s, early 2000s. I had a company called Counterpane, and we were doing incident response. And what I'm trying to encapsulate in that, and it was actually pretty novel then, because that was the years when you thought you could buy antivirus, install it, and be done. You have computer security. And I'm trying to emphasize that that's not the way it works. That because it is human, because it is an arms race, because it is dynamic, that it's a continual process. And again, that won't be a surprise for anybody listening here. It was radical when I said that in the year 2000.
Yeah.
But now,
it's just
nobody thinks like you hire the security guy, get him doing stuff, then he leaves, and now you're
done. Yeah.
That is not something anybody thinks anymore.
Yeah.
But it's how door locks work.
Yeah.
You hire the locksmith, he puts a lock on the door, he goes home, and you don't see him for another decade.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I bring this up. So with Quantal Security, my company, we're trying to build novel solutions for the access control realm. And it's surprising just how commonplace that still is, that way of thinking. And it's just put it in place and forget it. And meanwhile, the systems are very hackable.
And evolving. I mean, a lot of times there's security measures we put in place based on one set of assumptions, and the assumptions change. I mean, you watch, there's a whole lot of authentication we do based on, I'm going to call them documents, right? Based on data, based on your voice, based on your image.
Mm-hmm.
AI is going to change all that.
Yeah.
So you think about authentication that happens remotely over the phone, we rely on voice. We can't rely on it anymore. So now maybe something like caller ID becomes more important. Now, caller ID is always been pretty hackable because it was kind of a not very important security measure. But if we lose recognizing each other's voice because of AI, now your phone ID is going to matter a lot. So here's an example where authentication is going to change because the underlying technologies in the world are changing.
Yeah. Speaking of AI, could you share maybe some of your thoughts and ideas of how it will be beneficial and ways that it'll become maybe a security risk or a privacy risk?
So I've been writing a lot about AI recently. It's in my latest book. I talk about AI as hackers and what that will do. Not what AI does the hacking. I mean, somebody would say it right. When AI discovers new vulnerabilities, when AI can be given source code and told to find vulnerabilities, or given the tax code, be told to find tax avoidance strategies. And I've also been writing about AI and democracy and how AI can affect democracy, both good and bad. I gave a talk on that at the RSA conference a few weeks ago. Kind of the most non-RSA talk ever given at RSA. Nothing about computers, really.
I love it, though.
When I think about AI and computer security specifically, there are two things I think about. One is AI being used as a tool for hacking. So not the creative element, but the actual hacking of the system in the moment. And this is something that's been thought about for many years. 2016, DARPA had an AI capture the flag event at DEF CON, which, was pretty mediocre. A team from Carnegie Mellon won. They're now a commercial product. And DARPA never repeated that experiment, but China has for every year since. It's called Robot Hacking Games. It's now run by the Chinese military.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Interesting techniques happening in AIs, both for attack and defense.
Yeah.
And my guess is that AIs will change both attack and defense in ways we don't fully understand. I don't think we can say which side will come out ahead. I think in the near term, the defense benefits because you're already being attacked at computer speeds.
Yeah. So
defending at computer speeds will be valuable. But there's going to be an enormous arms race in attack and defense techniques happening by AIs at computer speeds. The one thing I think the defense really benefits is finding vulnerabilities in source code or code in general. Now, if you think about it, AIs are already being used to find vulnerabilities. They're not that good at it yet. They're going to get better. Yeah. You know how this game goes, right? Every year the AI gets better until they surpass humans.
Yeah.
And what that means, it means a couple of things, right? When AIs are unleashed on the code in your company, any company, they're going to find hundreds, thousands of vulnerabilities. It'll be a disaster for security.
Yeah.
And that's legacy code. But new code the defender can use those same AIs before the product's released. It can be built into the compiler.
Yeah.
We could be in a world
exciting.
where vulnerabilities in code kind of become a thing of the past. And that's really interesting, right? Because long-term, an AI vulnerability finder benefits the defender because they can patch them.
It is a really exciting time. It'll be very interesting, I think, to see where it helps in the security side and where it maybe helps in the hacker side. But I think you're right. Adopting early to create new code will be really, really important.
Right. The legacy code's all insecure, and a disaster.
Yeah, in a disaster
will be secure.
Yeah, and that's what I try to preach in the access control space too, because there's a lot of legacy code out there, and it really needs to be updated for sure. That kind of brings me to the topic of security theater as well, because I think that a lot of companies are already starting to use the words AI in their security products. And maybe
it is definitely the word of the year when you went to the RSA conference.
Yeah.
Last year it was blockchain.
Yep.
And I know something else the year before that. I forget. I think it was IoT. It's like, it's a buzzword. It'll go away. I mean, it's AI everything now, but I think that's going to fade.
Yeah, I think the danger there, though, is potentially some security theater saying that they're utilizing AI, but maybe aren't properly.
We saw that with blockchain. I mean, everyone said we're using blockchain, and who really cared?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of move to that topic of security theater and where maybe you see new areas of that happening in the industries of security.
It happens everywhere. It's a mismatch, right? It stems from a mismatch of the need to feel secure and the need to be secure.
Yeah.
But security theater measures are measures that look good but don't do anything, right? And your goal with the security theater is to make people feel better. They don't need to be better. They need to feel more secure. Let's say that. They need to feel more secure, right? So after 9/11, people were scared for no good reason. And we need to do a bunch of, security theater things to make them feel better. So you can deride it, but it actually has an important psychological component. So look for security theater when the perception of risk is greater than the actual risk. Right? Terrorism is a prime example of lots of places where there are rare, spectacular, where our psychology gets it wrong. And that's where you see security theater.
This podcast is brought to you by Quantal Security. It's important noting how tech innovations like the ones pioneered by Quantal are actively reshaping the security landscape. At Quantal, our mission is to build software innovations that make systems more accessible and more secure. From leveraging quantum technology to integrating anomaly detection and immutable ledger systems, we're solving security problems in the realms of access control and beyond. If you want to learn more about Quantal, visit our website at quantalsecurity.com and reach out to us. So on the topic of security and usability, what are some areas where you think those will grow together, and where do you think maybe that will grow apart? For instance, maybe AI will help dramatically with usability, with software and that kind of thing to prevent user error. But where do you see that heading?
I like that usability is something that's real important in security in the past, 6-7 years. I probably get those dates wrong, but it used to be we would deploy security systems and people had to figure it out. And if they didn't figure it out, it was their fault. Really bad way to do security, right? If you think about, the security advice we used to give, don't plug USB sticks into your computer. Like, they're a USB stick. What are you supposed to do with them? Don't click on strange URLs. It's a URL. We design systems so badly that we blame the user when they do perfectly reasonable things with the technology we give them. So I'm a big fan of usability. I want to see more usable systems. Anything about AI and usability, I think it will increase usability. If nothing else, in terms of input. We used to be required to create our input in ways the computer understood. Computer's stupid. And now with just large language models, computers could understand human input. Right? We can talk to a computer in human language and it understands it now. That's an enormous difference.
Yeah.
That we don't have to learn computer speak, right? Click a bunch of buttons and say things in just the right way and format things in the right fields. That was all because computers couldn't understand regular input, and now it can. I think that's going to be enormous in ways that we're not even beginning to comprehend. So their usability
how I feel.
will change. I think there's also going to be a lot of advances in weird stuff detection, like an AI system that just sits behind you when you're at your bank website. And if you do something weird, like an obvious one is, send $50,000 to an account in Russia. You might stop and say,
hey, don't do that.
Do that. We think this is a scam. Here's why. At least sleep on it. Hey, just sort of a common sense in the background.
Yeah.
Computers are terrible at common sense, but these AI systems are better at it.
Yeah.
So
anomaly detection.
An AI that just sits on my home network. And if my refrigerator starts sending email spam, it'll pop up an alert. Your refrigerator sending email spam. Do you want it to do that? And the answer is probably, my refrigerator shouldn't send email at all. Stop it. So I think there will be advances there. And I think we're just going to see those. A lot of hype in AI, but I think there is real benefit because a lot of security exploits involve doing things that are not normal. And this is not normal detector is valuable.
Yeah, certainly. While there is a lot of hype, I think that it will become a very useful tool. So I totally agree with that.
Already is. This isn't me.
Yeah.
This is an AI answering questions. I'm sleeping. It's fantastic. I love this.
So how do you see the societal implications of security and privacy evolving? I know that you talk a lot about a variety of topics in your new book, and it seems like you're thinking a lot about society and impact of security on society.
So one of the themes in some of my recent thinking, it doesn't really make the new book except peripherally, is the notion that we are becoming really powerful as a species. That humans are incredibly powerful and will soon get, world catastrophic powers, whether it's molecular nanotechnology or biology, synthetic biology, or AI and robotics, or cybersecurity. Nuclear weapons is the old one. That security is going to become really different because we're not going to be able to handle the level of rule breakers that we're used to. I mean, as high as the murder rate is in the United States, it's still, I'm going to say this, just murder. It's not destroying a city. But when those same people can do orders of magnitude more damage, the notion of, let them all have guns, who cares, is no longer tenable because millions of people die. And there are a bunch of technologies that are on the cusp of that. And that's going to radically change how we think about security. We are very rights-based. You're allowed to do whatever you want. And if it's illegal, we arrest you afterwards. And that only works as a security measure if the damage you do before we arrest you isn't that great. And that's just one of the ways I think our relationship with security is going to change in the coming years. There are others, and I'm starting to write about them now, and they're still kind of half-formed, but, this is the kind of thing I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah. One of the things that we're really focused on at Quantal is bridging the gap between cybersecurity and physical security and how they're becoming more and more intertwined. And with all of the camera detection and different sensors and that kind of thing, we're starting to get more and more powerful things on the physical security side as well. And then you have to protect all that data on top of it. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on how physical security and cybersecurity are kind of becoming more and more intertwined.
I think it is what you say, that all these physical security devices have a data component, are on the internet. Right? You buy a door lock today, it's internet connected. You mentioned cameras, any of these sensors are producing data, right? They're all going somewhere. I'm less concerned about illegal uses. I'm actually less worried about you have to secure it, because I'm way more worried about the legal uses. Way more worried about the companies who have legit access to that data, selling it, giving it to the police, using it against you. So no amount of authentication will prevent the company who makes the Ring doorbell from using it against your self-interest. That's a problem of tech monopolies. Right? That's a problem of power of tech. And I'm way more worried about the legit uses than the illegitimate uses. Not that that's not an issue. I mean, good for you for authentication. But think a lot about the systems of power we're building that give these companies access to all of that and the ability to do whatever they want with it.
Yeah, I saw an article recently about how there's regulation, I can't remember which state, for basically prohibiting biometric use in authentication for physical entry for that reason, exploiting.
Yeah, I mean, I forget which state. I remember that. And that's a little weirdly short-sighted. I mean, I'm okay with a door lock with a fingerprint reader and the fingerprint stays on the door lock. Now, you remember when Apple had the fingerprint ID?
Yeah.
That worked because that never went into a central database. Those fingerprint data was stored locally on your object. So you don't have this massive security risk. And this makes it hard, right? It's hard to craft good regulation. And that's why we need techies like us, right, in Congress writing that law, because that's actually not very good. There are lots of uses of fingerprints that are great. What you want to avoid are the central databases. That's the vulnerability.
Yeah, and I think
they didn't ask us when they drafted it.
Exactly. Yeah, I know it's very interesting where things are going in legislation. I totally agree. There needs to be techies influencing or educating legislators at the very least. But it is an interesting issue when you take into account there's sensors now that take your image, it's facial recognition to get an entry to a facility. And those are typically cloud-based. So theoretically, those that data is in the cloud. And protecting that, I think, going the route of making sure that is protected and isn't able to be sold, like you said, by a big corporation.
Now, be careful. Protected is not the same. Protected isn't allowed to be stolen. Because if it's sold, the person with the protection key has the data, right? I mean,
yeah,
right?
That's a great point.
These security systems only protect against illicit use. They don't protect against legitimate use.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. So maybe better regulation for selling the data or something.
Selling, collecting. I mean, this is my data story life book, 2014, and I spent a lot of time on how to solve this. It's a hard problem.
Yeah.
But right, we are in this sea of data. We have this cloud of data around us, and it's being used without our knowledge or permission.
Yeah.
And that's not great.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see how everything shapes around AI, security, all of these topics when it comes to regulation. And I'm hoping, like you said, that they don't make short-sighted decisions and limit growth.
It's also changing so fast. I'm going to hit growth in a second.
Okay.
I mean, I'm writing essays that feel obsolete a month later.
Yeah, I know.
And then also be careful about the don't limit growth. Okay. That tends to be a bullshit argument by people who want to take your money. Be very careful about that. There's nothing that says that a company has to grow. Possibly limiting growth is better for society in certain areas.
Yeah.
And, it's too freaking bad. And I'm tired of the whining.
Yeah, with growth, I meant more about technological growth and the way that it could potentially impact society with, in all the positive ways. So figuring out the right balance is going to be really tough, and somebody else's job.
Fast-moving tech world.
Yeah.
Right? Tech is moving so fast.
Yeah, so fast. So you said you wanted to talk a little bit more about growth?
No, I just did.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So Do you have any other thoughts before we wrap up about the future of security and how fast everything's ramping up, or anything more about your book?
I just want to say that things are changing really fast right now. AI is going to change things in ways we don't understand. I mean, I just said that I'm writing op-eds, and a month later, I'm looking at it saying, this is not true anymore. Like, things are different.
Yeah.
Things we are learning today, limitations are not going to be true in 6 months. As to be really interesting time in security and sort of all of tech. So pay attention is one piece of advice. Things are moving really fast, and you want to know what's going on.
Yeah, exciting times. Bruce, thank you so much for joining the podcast. I appreciate your time, and look forward to seeing this come out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. If you like this episode, you can follow us for more on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.